Hello and good morning and welcome everybody to today's VIRL September 2016 webinar, part of the ongoing series dedicated to helping you optimize your use of VIRL. Today's presenters will be Ralph Schmieder and Tom Bryan. They will be presenting a basic VIRL tutorial and giving a couple of other updates as well. And with that, Ralph, I'm going to get it right on over to you.
Thank you, Matt. Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. So in this webinar, we are going to address following agenda. Let's just see to jump to the agenda slide. I mean, this is probably pretty much what Matt already addressed. From an agenda perspective, the most time during the next 60 minutes or so will take the live demo, which will take you through the product, like pretty much from to start to the end of the simulation. And this time with a little twist, which I'm getting to in a minute. Then there will be an update on upcoming releases and some VMs that we do have in the pipeline, which is being done by Tom. And we are having some time at the end reserved for Q&As or stuff that comes up frequently in the Q&A panel. So yeah, and that should be pretty much filling up the hour. So this is pretty much what we want to do during this webinar. We are doing these soup to nuts demonstrations every now and so often, so that we want to give you guys a basic introduction, how to run simulations and how to interact with simulations, how to use the editor and how to create topologies, parameterize those topologies using A and K, and then provide the configurations, and so on and so forth. So, and this time, if you just advance to the next slide, please. This time we want to do this with a little twist, right? So we want to show you some feature that has been in VIRL for quite a while, and it has been added, like new functionalities or things that weren't possible in the past. So a few more things have been added to that functionality, which is the browser-based editor, or the web editor, as we call it internally. And the web editor is something that has grown and that is now in a state where we think, okay, it could actually be used, to give you the same experience, or coming close to the experience that VM Maestro gives, and we can actually use that in production. And the reason why we are showing this to you now is that we are kind of in the mode of collecting feedback and wanting you guys to use that web editor and be able to provide provide information like, okay, so there is a missing feature, or things don't work as expected, or we desperately are looking for something over here in this area. So this is the perfect time for you guys to influence the direction which the web editor takes. And we know that it is not perfect as of today, and it lacks some functionality if you compare it directly with VM Maestro. But it is usable to an extent where I actually can run the entire demonstration now using the web editor. So, and that's kind of the the twist or the interesting aspect of this time where we do the demo, that we are using not VM Maestro to drive the demo, but using the web editor, right? And this actually starts then the demonstration. So the next slide is probably just the demo slide. Matt, if you could advance to the next slide. No, this is the topology. Okay, so I'm going to create a little topology here. So pretty much 2 AS autonomous systems, and I do have then a traffic generator in here so that we can send traffic across this autonomous system, or these 2 autonomous systems, and also apply a bit of Wireshark traffic sniffing in between, and show you the various aspects of the web editor while we go through the demonstration and use this topology as a guideline. All right, next slide, please. Yeah, this is the one that I was hoping for. Okay, so now let me share my screen. I need a ball for this. Grab the ball. Can you pass me the ball? All right.
There you go.
Okay. And then going to share my applications. Probably. Okay, and one more. Share application. Ostinato. All right. So I have opened my UWM, and as you can see, I'm running a stock version of VIRL here. So this is not any hidden or whatever feature that I'm going to show you. So this is included in the stock version of VIRL that we have released. So the 1.2.64. And if I go over here into my simulations, I have currently no active simulations running. And maybe one word about this server itself. So this server runs remote. I'm connected via OpenVPN to a server that runs somewhere in the data center, and I'm having an OpenVPN connection to that server. So I'm connecting over flat over the OpenVPN to that server. You can only see Ostinato. That's bad. So I'm probably going to share my desktop then in that case. Can you see my Chrome browser now?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that.
No, you're good.
All right, so yeah, so as I said, I'm running over OpenVPN, so this server is actually a remote server. And here is my current simulations, no simulation currently running. And if I click up here on launch new simulation, and I'm going to see this screen over here, and then I will see, okay, various options to launch a simulation file. So I could load a local VIRL file that sits on my Mac, which I would choose over here, right? So I choose the file from my Mac. I could also use a remote URL to load that file if I have some server running which has the file available, or I can even use a Git repository. So in this case, we have the Git repository on virl.open on GitHub included here, and we can select from the topologies that are offered over there. Now in this case, I'm using a local VIRL file. I don't load anything, but I'm going to use the editor, which is behind this button over here, that allows me to edit the topology. So if I click on this guy, a new window opens, and I do see an empty canvas, right? So in this case, we have some tools to select nodes and to pan and zoom, and configure various aspects of the editor, the network topology display itself. We do have on the right-hand side various buttons for nodes that we can insert into the topology, and we are currently in the add and connect nodes mode. So at this point, I can add, for example, IOSV node. So I click on IOSV, and the cursor changes, and I add this topology that I've shown you before. And one of the very nifty features in here is that when I have placed nodes in here, depending on how close they are, I click on auto connect, and then all the connections between these nodes are automatically being created, which is really kind of very fast, right? So, and in this case, we want to also add some additional nodes. We want to have the Ostinato drone. So we add this guy in here as well. And then to manage the drones, we also want to have flat connectors so that my local Mac can use the GUI for Ostinato to connect to these drones. And then in this case, we also need to hook them up, and to make sure that they are hooked up in the way that we expect it to be, we connect them manually. Okay. Now, this is pretty much done. So we have placed all the nodes onto the canvas. We connected them up, and so we can click finish and return. And we can get back to this later on and just add and connect more nodes, and finish and return gets back to this place, right? There are some properties that we can configure for the entire topology, like CDP, for example, or if we want to have just an infrastructure-only base configuration and no AutoNetKit configuration, we can click on infrastructure only and can configure various other aspects of the network configuration or the automatic network configuration part here as well. So in this case, this is all fine, so we leave it as it is. And now we can also do another part or another aspect of the entire editor, which is annotation. So for this, we go in and change into the selection tool. So we have now the selection tool enabled. We draw a rectangle around the nodes that we are interested in. Those are getting highlighted. And then in this case, we want to have a rectangle around those. Same goes for the other ones. Draw the rectangle around those. And we can also add then more annotations. So in this case, I'm switching to annotation edit mode over here. We can add rectangles, ellipses, lines, and arrows, and also text. So in this case, I'm just adding some text fields in here. and then clicking on these guys and change this. Oops, what did I do? Undo. This should go away. Selection, action, remove. Click on this guy and say, okay, this should be ASN or AS20. Make the size a bit bigger and bold. Move it into the right spot, and the same goes for this guy, AS10. Make it a bit bigger and move it into the right spot. All right, we can also change colors and stuff, right? So I mean the usual things that you would expect, and change this into, let's say, orange. All right. So if we don't want to see those, we can hide the annotation layer, and we can show the annotation layer again. Same goes for the interface names that we can hide and show. Now we have the annotations in here, and we can also do stuff like, okay, select this one, and then select all the nodes which are within the rectangle, right? Which is kind of conveniently, okay, selecting all these guys that I had before. And we could potentially say, for example, okay, we want to have this set to ASN 10. No, that was not. Let me just do that again. Select nodes inside ASN 10. Yeah, it worked. And then we could also do something like this. We can select them manually by drawing a rectangle and say, okay, this is 20. Or we can then say, okay, hide the layer. And then we can configure various other aspects. In this case, I want to configure BGP parameters and say, okay, these guys over here, they should be running BGP as a route reflector client, and then put in the route reflector cluster number to keep this organized. Okay, this is going to be 20. And this guy over here should not be a route reflector client. This guy should actually be the route reflector itself. So now we've configured these guys over here in ASN 20 as a route reflector client and route reflector itself. These guys will still be using full mesh 4 BGP, so there is no route reflector configured. And we can also configure, for example, OSPF parameters. So we would say, okay, these guys over here, they are running OSPF and they should be running area 100. And same goes for these guys over here. They should be running OSPF in area 200. And did I? Probably did not. Let me just see and confirm. OSPF 200, yes. And these two guys, they should be running OSPF in 0. Okay. Now that we base configured or parameterized the entire topology, we can then also run AutoNetKit, and AutoNetKit is being triggered by hitting this button up here. So we can show this tab here and then say run AutoNetKit. So this then communicates with the server, and you can see the log from AutoNetKit in here. So it configured the entire topology. There was no error. So we should be good to go. We can, in this case, click on various nodes. So for example, on this guy here and say, okay, what is the generated configuration for this node? So we do see down here that we have OSPF configured, and we have iBGP configured to the route reflector client, and we have an eBGP session configured to the orange, the AS10 external router as well, border router here as well. So that looks okay to me. Looking at this other guy, for example, shows that this only has OSPF configured and an internal BGP session to the route reflector itself, which is what we expect. We could also verify this by opening up the topology visualization, and then we would see a rendering of the topology pre-launch. So this is not launched yet, but we can still view various aspects of the topology using this little button drop-down menu over here, where we can say, okay, show us OSPF information, and for this we want to hide the annotation layer. So we can see, for example, that this is AS10, that there are like various parameters being set for the routers within this autonomous system. Or we could look at BGP, where we do see that we have a route reflector here and the full mesh over here, which is what we configured ANK, or what we parameterized the topology for. All right. So we have configured the entire topology. We've provided configuration for the nodes in here. We've made annotations. We verified the configurations being generated and so on and so forth. So now at this point, we want to sync the configuration back to UWM. So for this, we need to click on this guy up here, and you will see that it syncs to UWM, and then it says, okay, it has been synced. And at this point, we can switch back to the launch simulation view over here. Since we didn't provide a file name, we have to provide a topology name or a simulation name here manually. So that is something that would be, the file name would be used, for example, if you would open up a file. But in this case, we've edited something from scratch. So we have to provide the name, conveniently, webinar. And then there's various other things that we can configure down here. So we can say, okay, what's the management node option? So it uses the Linux container for by default, and we can also specify, the out-of-band management that we are going to use. So in this case, it's per project, private network per project. Okay, so this is all good. So we don't change anything down here, and then we are the other options up here would be, okay, again, a preview, which is shown down here. So we can again look at a preview, or we can have the resource requirements calculated. So we do see how many nodes we are consuming, how many memory would be required, and how many CPU nodes would be required. But this is all good. So we can actually launch the simulation, and clicking the launch button, simulation should be coming up. Right. All right. So we will see the various nodes in the list down here and the states that they are going through. From absent to active. And while we're waiting, while this is spun up, there is one other thing that I want to show you guys, which is kind of convenient if you're dealing with the mgmt-lxc, or if you're dealing with Linux containers or server VMs, which is the secure shell provisioning, which is something that I quite often use. So I'm currently authenticated as the user guest. So if I go in here and click on edit, you can see that I've provisioned my secure shell public key in here. So this is my public key, which has been, so I have a public private key pair, and this is the public part of it. And if I insert this public key into this field and save it in here, then all of the virtual machines that have a secure shell daemon on it and can deal with authorized keys will have this file or this string inserted into the authorized key section, so that I can secure shell into these machines without providing a password, which I find kind of very convenient. So this is something that I would see as a best practice and wanted to show you guys. All right. Another thing, while this is probably still spinning up, is there are more functions in here within the editor which are kind of very convenient. So if I click, for example, on one of these guys and then go into actions, then I could say, okay, select all the peer nodes in here, right? Or select all the interfaces that are attached to this, and then provide properties for this interface. For example, a VLAN, if I'm attaching these guys to a switch or something, right? Or if this would be a switch, and then I could select all the interfaces of the switch. I can also, make inverse selections or these kind of things, which are kind of nifty. I could say, okay, use multi-select and select all these guys and attach a tag. So I can say, okay, these are all routers, right? Or I could say, okay, so these guys over here are routers in AS20. So I have the capability to filter for these tags later on, which is also a very interesting feature and an addition that we've added to VM Maestro and also to the web editor in a recent release. All right, so there is a lot of functionality in there that already is working. As I said in the beginning, This is not complete. This is not perfect. There are probably also bugs in there or things that are not working as expected. But we wanted you guys to have a look at this and play with this. So that is something that we wanted to show you. Going back to here, we do see that all these guys are now currently active, and they're also reachable. So reachable in this column means that the mgmt-lxc, which is this guy down here, can ping these routers. So there is connectivity on the out-of-band management network, and they are responding to their management IP addresses, right? So if I click, for example, on this guy, and then you will also see this is the secure shell authentication. So I didn't provide any password. I was just thrown right onto the shell of this guy. Let's switch back to this. And so I probably can just take this IP address over here and ping him, right? All right, so this is working. And we have various other options in here. So we can stop nodes by selecting them and click on stop nodes in here, or extract the configuration for this node, telnet to the console directly off the node. There's other options within the web browser. So this link here will bring up my native terminal application and brings up the console. This is running within the browser itself using a webmaster connection. And the same here for that SSH connection, not to the console, but to the management IP address here. So we can manage the entire network using this interface here. But the other option then would also be to use live visualization, which I'm going to bring up now. So if live visualization brings up, again, the topology view, and now I can interact with my simulation pretty much as the within VM Maestro and the active canvas, right? So again, I can disable the annotation layer so that I see the entire topology here. And this is now the physical view of my network, right? So I can switch between physical view, some layer 2 view, which doesn't make a lot of sense at this point because we don't have any switches in here and no trunks whatsoever. Or we can switch, for example, to OSPF. And then LiveWiz will then reach out to these guys through the management LXC and talk to the devices to retrieve various information from the devices to update the view here that we do see. And this is also being reflected in the log here, where we can see that the commands that the management container actually issues to the devices to retrieve various information here, right? So it shows OSPF, IP OSPF brief, and so on and so forth. We can also switch to various other views. So for example, for BGP, again, it reaches out to the devices and shows the information that are live information retrieved directly from the devices itself. So this is the entire BGP view. We see the different domains here or autonomous systems, ASN 10 and ASN 20. We can switch to IBGP. We see the route reflector over here, and we can switch to eBGP. Again, showing the external BGP connection here. And we have various actions that we can do in here, right? So one of the things which is quite convenient is we can set up syslog on all of these devices automatically. So this starts and connects to all the devices and then enables syslog on these devices. And the syslogs will then be reported into the, again, the LXC management container. And you can see that syslog has started for all of these containers, right? Or for all of these routers, sorry. We have the ability to filter various syslog messages in here by providing either just a plain text string or even a regular expression so that you can, sort through the generated syslogs. And we also have various actions in here. We can insert a marker or clear the entire syslog. So for example, if I go in here and interact with a simulation and say, okay, so this interface should be disabled or shut down, I can do so by clicking on the interface name. So click on this guy and say, okay, disable this interface. So as you will see, the interface will turn red. And then we will also see the device reporting back into syslog saying, okay, so this interface has changed its state. And then we also see that OSPF is actually reporting that the neighbor has gone down, right? So in this case, you can say, okay, we're only interested in OSPF, and then filtering into OSPF, we'll see the according or the relevant syslog entries in here. All right. What else can we do? So we can collect various information from the simulation at this point, whether this is layer 2 information, which is, as I said before, not relevant for this particular topology, or routing information up here. All of that can be collected from within LiveVis, right? Now, one thing that I wanted to show you in this context is we want to do some traffic generation, right? And for traffic generation, we are going to use Ostinato. So I've placed 2 Ostinato drones into this topology, and I also have placed 2 flat connectors into the topology. So these 2 drones, they are reachable from my Mac using OpenVPN and the connection into flat, so that I can connect my Ostinato GUI, my client that runs locally on my Mac, directly through this interface and through this interface to these 2 guys, and then generate traffic that flows from here through the network, through this link in the middle to here, right? And for this to work, I actually need to telnet into these guys, right? So this would be the source. So I need to log in here and say if config. So we do see the various interfaces that are attached. So this is the out-of-band management interface. This is the interface to flat. So I do see this is the 104 on the flat network that I can talk to. And this is the interface that actually goes towards this router here. So this Ethernet 2 interface that we're looking at. Okay, then let's move this over here and do the same thing for this guy, telnet. And again, providing the password and do an if config. And this is the destination. All right, so this goes away. Done. Okay. Did I move the wrong window? Here we go. No, this is not the right window. This is 1, and this is 2. Okay, here we go. Again, this guy has another IP address on the flat network, so this is 103, and this is, I'm sorry about this. So I'm having the wrong window open. This is also the wrong window. I should have closed all of these. Here we go. I hope this is not correct. Yeah, these are the 2 running ones. Okay. So we have 103 and 104 over here. Now we need to define these within Ostinato, okay, and then create a new port group. We can put this in 172.16.1.103, and we see there is a green button up here. This is my Mac. We can delete this one. So this is the remote port group 1, and then new port group. This is 104. This is the destination, and they both show green. So we do see packets already retrieved by the 2 drones, but now we want to define, okay, from where to where does the traffic flow? And if we look, this is our source, so we need to figure out this interface here, which is the source 10.101 on Ethernet 2, and this is this interface that we are interested in. So we are defining a traffic stream, or we are defining a traffic stream that needs to, delete the stream that I've predefined or pre-created, because I don't want to go through the entire thing from the beginning. That would be a bit too much. So this is Ostinato stream. So we are opening this guy up and move this a bit around. So I'm creating a traffic stream that is IPv4. So this is an IPv4 traffic stream. It actually is UDP based, and we need to enter various data in here. So and that's the tricky part. If you want to do traffic generation in here, you have to figure out what's the destination address and what's the source address of the MAC layer, and as well as the IPv4 layer in this case, right? So, and to figure this out, we need to look at the source of the traffic, which is over here. So the source is pretty easy, right? So we are looking at this guy, and this is actually the source MAC address, right? So this is our link going to the router. So this is the source MAC address. We copy this guy, and we paste it in here, paste. Okay, the destination is slightly more difficult because we are now looking at the MAC address, or we need the MAC address of the next hub router, which is our router in the simulation. So we actually need to ping 10.1.0.2. In this case, this is a /252 or /30 network, sorry. And so I can ping this guy and arg-a. This is not big enough. Here we go. So this is actually the MAC address of our next hub router. So we need to copy this guy. This is the interface MAC address of our next hub router, and put this in here. Right. So this is layer 2, and we also have to adapt layer 3. Sorry. So this is the source, and the source in our case is 10.1.0.1. So 10.1.0.1, and the destination is over here. So the destination is not the next hub router. The destination is actually the Ostinato destination drone, and this is this guy over here. So this would be 10.0.0.1. Right? So we need to put in the destination IP in here, and I just can remove the last digit. So 10.0.0.1 is our destination, and then from a UDP point of view, I've just dreamt up, a source port and a destination port. It's just, some random value that I put in there. There is no variable field. And then the important thing over here is how many packets do we want to send and at what rate. So at this point, we say 1,000 packets at 100 packets per second, which roughly gives us 650 kilobits per second sent across the wire. That's pretty much all that we need. And then we need, don't forget to click apply. That's important because at this point, the GUI talks to the drones and configures the traffic generation. Now, another important thing if you work with Ostinato is that you need to select the correct column in here to make this work. So in this case, we are looking at port group 1, port 2. So port group 1, port 2 is this column in here. And again, reset the counters and then click play. And we will see that we are now sending frames and we are receiving frames on the other end. Right? So this is corresponding. This is our destination drone, port 2. Port group 2 is our destination drone. Port group 1 is our source drone. And we've sent now packets, 1,000 packets roughly sent, and 1,000 packets roughly received on the other end. Now to actually show that, we can again go back to our WebEx or our live visualization and then say, okay, we want to set up a traffic capture in here, right? So we are clicking on this guy and then say, set up packet capture, right? So again, up comes a window. And now there's a little glitch in here, something that we need to improve. There is a list now because we now can select multiple ports or multiple interfaces to capture packets simultaneously. But in this case, we are just interested in iOS 3 and then Gigabit Ethernet 03. So that would be this interface that we are interested to capture traffic from. And we want to have a live capture on a specific TCP port, which is 16,500. And we want to start the capture immediately. So if we know what we are looking for, we could also provide a PCAP filter, say, okay, we're just looking for UDP traffic for 5, 6, 7 or something. But in this case, just filter or capture everything, and then click on create. Now this creates a live traffic capture. And as you can see down here at the list, so this thing is already live on this specific port, and it captures traffic, right? Now, I'm using, for this little exercise, I'm using a little script that again comes from GitHub, from VIRL-open, and we put the link of the GitHub repository into the recording. But what we do here is we have this little script, and this is multiple scripts that are living on GitHub that are providing some functionality, around VIRL. But this is a script that the user has contributed, and this little script, damn it. Okay, this little script allows us to launch Wireshark, and then and then yeah, listens for packets on this pipe. Okay, so in this case, we just do log Wireshark, provide the port, which is 16,500, which we've configured during the setup of the packet capture, and then provide the IP address of the VIRL host itself. Now, this immediately starts Wireshark, and then we should see packets coming in on that link, right? So currently there's not a lot of traffic happening, but we can then go back to our Ostinato drone and again start the traffic, right? So this is still selected, and start the traffic over here. Something's wrong. Apparently this doesn't. Yeah, this is the beauty of a live demonstration. I've done this a couple of times, and in this case it does work. But as you can see, I mean, traffic should actually be flowing in here, and I'm not sure why we are not seeing the UDP packets right now. But apparently the traffic is being sent, but not seen on this specific port here. Not sure what went wrong there. All right, cool. So the last thing that I wanted to show you guys is modification of the actual simulation. So let's just stop this traffic capture over here and show some modification in here, right? So if I telnet to the console of this guy over here, so this is the actual console of the router, I can go in and do some modification to the actual router, to the router configuration. So in this case, I'm just configuring something that is easy to see. So I'm going to configure a different host name. So let's say, so this is my simulation, and now the host name has changed, right? So we can save this. Saving doesn't help that much. I mean, if I would reload this machine, then of course the simulation or the host name would be reflected, because the NVRAM for this current instance of the virtual machine remembers my change here. But what I actually want to achieve is that if I'm stopping the simulation, I want to preserve the changes that I've done to the simulation. That is also possible using the browser-based editor, the web editor here in this case. So I'm closing down this console window again, and then going back to my simulation control in here. And what I could do now is I could download the original VIRL file, which would not reflect my my changes, but I could also instruct the UWM here in this case and say, okay, retrieve the configuration of either all of those, selecting all the nodes, or by selecting individual nodes that should retrieve the config, or where the configuration should be retrieved. So in this case, I want to retrieve all the nodes and then say, okay, extract the configuration here, right? So now it reaches out, again, the LXC, the management container, reaches out to the various virtual machines, the various routers, and retrieves the configuration, and then downloads that content to my desktop or to my machine over here, right? So I can take this and then just open it up in, let's say, Sublime, and then look for my simulation, and this host name is actually contained in here, right? And so I could also, as another exercise, I could go in here and then launch a new simulation and select this file that I just downloaded. So that should be in here, webinar, open this up, go again into the editor, and then select this router here and look at the configuration. So it already has the configuration, and the host name reflects my change that I did in the running simulation, and that was preserved while extracting the configuration. So this is pretty much what I have prepared. So as I said in the beginning, we hope that you guys have a look at this and take this out for a ride and report back to us what you're desperately missing, or if things are not working, or if there is something that you would like to see in here. So yeah, it's out there. It's released code. You can use it, and we all hope that you make good use of it and report back to us, and we try to improve this over time. That's all that I had, and I guess it's now over to Tom to give you some update on upcoming releases and also on upcoming changes or additions to the VM family.
Thank you very much, Ralph. Tom, let's get you squared away with the presenter's ball here, and that should allow you to advance the slides properly. If not, then I'll jump in and help out.
Okay. Thanks, Matt. Let's see. I'll try to advance it. Everyone's seeing this advance to the update on the images.
Yep, that was done. Thank you.
Okay, so we just wanted to give a quick update on where we are with some of the images that we've talked about recently. Let's see. So the first one that's already gone up, if you go into the UWM under your VIRL server VIRL software page, you have the ability to select and upgrade all your images from individual images, and that changes the default image that VIRL uses when when you're launching a simulation and you have not specified a specific VM image for a node. The CSR1000V, the image labeled CSR1000V would be used, for example, for a CSR1000V node. You can always download additional images from the software download page, going to your your Medius account basically for VIRL. There's a download VIRL link there, and in that page there's additional alternate versions of the images that you can also install, and you can use those when you're designing this topology. You can specify specific images if you decide to upload alternates. But for the defaults, we've already published sort of a new update for the default CSR1000V image. With the July release, we put out CSR1000V 16.2.2. That was the sort of latest public version of CSR1000V available at the time. Unfortunately, that had some kind of severe problems with, for example, the latency functionality. We now have this 16.3.1 image from the operating system team. We've updated the default version in VIRL, so CSR1000V now, if you install now or if you do an update, you should get the 16.3.1 that will fix those problems that people were having with the 16.2.2. We also saw that some people were having problems with the serial port. It was by default sort of set to auto, and in testing that seems to select the console port, but some users are seeing it switch sort of into like a VGA mode where all the console connection, instead of going to the serial line, was going to like an internal VGA port that was not easy to access. So we've published, you'll see now it says 16.3.1-build1. This is the same 16.3.1 image. We've just kind of done some repackaging that we hope makes that problem go away, so that if you had problems with the initial 16.3.1, make sure that you're up to the 16.3.1-build1 image. And we believe that solves the problem, but certainly let us know if you're still seeing that type of issue where the CSR1000V comes up, stops sort of reporting progress, and messages stream on the console for just a moment, then stop, and then minutes later it looks like it's not responding, but it's up. It's possible that it's connected to the VGA console instead of the serial console. But the hope is that the 16.3.1-build1 image now fixes that issue. Let's see. So yeah, we have the IOCL2 image that's out there. We have not updated it yet. We do have a new IOCL2 image that we are testing that has largely just bug fixes for many of the issues that have been reported in the last several months. The intent is to get that out. We're still testing it, so if the testing goes well, the intent is to get that out either this month or next. So it may be part of the upcoming release, or it might even drop in between the two releases. So just look for that update, and we'll put up a set of bug fixes associated with that image when the image actually goes public. We also announced with the July webinar that we'd be adding separate IOL and IOL2 images into VIRL. Basically, instead of running as virtual machines, those run as LXC containers. They're lighter weight than an IOSV image, which would permit you to run more of them. So we're still, we were hoping to be able to use the expedited process here to get those out. Unfortunately, between that webinar and our July release, we were told that we had to go through a full sort of internal release process. We are still working through that process. We don't have a date on when that will be done, but we are still working through it. We will certainly announce it as soon as we get all the whatever the paperwork done internally to get that release out the door. And that functionality is already sort of latent in VIRL, so that won't even require a new actual release on our side. As soon as we get that update, we should be able to just push those images out into the existing product. Let's see, NXOS. So NXOSV, if you've been following this one, the current image in VIRL is NXOSV. It's a Nexus 7K based image. Earlier this year, we announced that the development on that had basically stopped with the features that we had. So we were not expecting any new features. We were initially hoping to get some things like VPC implemented in that NXOSV image, the 7K based image. So earlier this year, we announced we're not looking for new features there. We are going to be adding an NXOS 9KV image based on the Nexus 9000 operating system. So that is currently still the plan. It is on track for an first half of 2017 to get that release out. The initial release, we expect to have some L2 features, including things like sub interfaces, port channel, VLAN support, probably partial VXLAN support. We're not sure whether VPC is going to make that initial release. If not, it will come in sort of a future update to that image. It is planned for the Nexus, the NXOS 9KV image. It's just not certain whether it will make their initial release or the sort of next major update after that one. We don't expect some of the other features to make that initial release, like OTP, but again, we're still doing some active development here, so we will be pushing for those additional features in that release line. Let's see. So and then in terms of so the Nexus 9K, NXOS 9K V image, I think, right, that'll be probably a little heavier than the current NXOSV image. I think we're expecting it to come in around something like 8 gig of RAM per device. The next one, iOS XRV. Okay, so the current iOS XRV image that we have is based on it's a iOS XRV 6.1. That's based on a QNX microkernel and a 32-bit code base. With iOS XR 6.2, Cisco's moving to a newer 64-bit code base with a Linux kernel, and that we're releasing that in VIRL as the iOS XR 9000V, and that image we expect to have in early 2017. So the some of the advantages of this one is that we do expect some additional L2 feature support, such as BTI. The memory footprint of that one, again, will be a little bit bigger than the current iOS XR-V, we believe. We think it'll be about, as being targeted for about 4.5 gig of memory per device. The other thing that's a little bit internal for us, but that we have found, the iOS XR 6.1, the current iOS XR-V image based on the 6.1 release, that code base seems a little bit unstable when it's run for, say, multiple days on the current, with the newer versions of the virtualization technology underneath VIRL, the KVM QEMU stack. The newer versions of iOS XR 9KV that we'll be getting early next year should permit us to move over to better, newer versions of KVM and make it easier for us to move into Ubuntu 16.04. The iOS XRV image, the older ones, we believe will still run there. Just again, for longer runs, we expect the XR 9KV would be more stable. I think that's all the updates for the images for now. We'll certainly post more information on the community forum, and if when we send out the announcement email, if you've signed up for that on the virl.cisco.com, you can sign up to get periodic announcements. We usually send something out once a month or so, announcing any new webinars, and also if you haven't noticed image updates coming through on the UWM in VIRL, you'll get announcements from it there. Releases. So we put out a release in July 2016. We plan to have a release coming out in September in the next few weeks. That largely is going to be a bug fix release. I don't think that there's anything you'd really see as a big feature update. But you'll be able to grab this sort of rolls up all of our existing bug fixes. There'll be an OVA if you're installing from scratch or an ISO. And then if you have existing VIRL users, you can pull the upgrades through the UWM. And that again, pulling in new versions of all the components just to pull in the bug fixes we've done since the July release. I say October release, that this might be late October, early November. This one is going to be additional bug fixes. We also have, like I said, the plan to move the underlying base in VIRL. That VIRL VM is VIRL 14.04, and we're using OpenStack Kilo under the covers. We'd like to move this up to Ubuntu 16.04 and OpenStack Mitaka. It's just more recent, better supported versions of those. Of that platform. Switching over to 16.04, the initial release that we do after the September release, the next release but one, we'll be putting out sort of two flavors. One would be the still based on 14.04. We'll roll in any new bug fixes or changes we make. We've got a few things coming in plans for that release. And you can just do the upgrade based on your current 14.04 and Kilo stack. Or we'll also be publishing the ISOs and the OVAs based around Ubuntu 16.04, based around OpenStack Mitaka. That switch would require a forklift upgrade. We just won't support a in-place upgrade to that, so that would require you to reinstall from scratch to switch over to that. And then into next year, that's going to be our direction going forward, is to get everything moved over to Ubuntu 16.04 and that stack. Let's see, and then I think that is, so just our normal sort of list of links. I don't know whether Ralph mentioned at the beginning, the main site is probably cisco.com. Like I said, you can register for the announcements email mailing list there. Our support forum on the Cisco Learning Network, that's the link there if you have any questions or trouble. Also, if you have requests for new features, new VMs, things like that, you can submit them there in the support forum. There's a category when you create a new discussion to click feature requests, or you can search for other people's feature requests and add your me too to the list if it's something you're also interested in. We will also be posting probably next week to that community forum the Q&A from this webinar and links to the webinar video. The videos for all of our webinars can be found at our YouTube channel. The link is there. It's basically youtube.com/CiscoViral. And Ralph mentioned he has some of the scripts and things he was using during his demo come from our GitHub repo. So that's there under the github.com/viralopen. And that's it. I think any sort of Q&A questions that we want to bubble up to the main part of the presentation. I think a lot of the ones that I saw were kind of around the VM updates anyway. Ralph, anybody else? You can come off mute if you saw anything in the Q&A you wanted to address.
I quickly browsed through. Nothing that is really outstanding. Questions all across different topics. So if we've missed anything, as I said in the beginning, I guess then we are just, well, not I guess, we are going to follow up and pasting the Q&A as part of the recording into the Learning Network.
Okay. The one thing I did see is somebody asking about why you use the web-based UI instead of VM Maestro. Certainly, we have a lot of people requesting the web-based UI over the last couple of years, just so they don't have to do local installs and things like that. We've kind of put together this version. Like Ralph said, we know it's still missing some functionality, and there's some workflow pieces we want to clean up. We're hoping to get people to give us feedback there so that we can. We're planning to invest some effort into kind of making that web UI smooth and feature complete and slick to use. So at this point, we'd really like people to start playing with it, and you can either use the again the community forum and just add it as feature requests or bug reports there, or you can also use in the UWM. There's a feedback button, so you can click on that and just drop comments about the web-based editor or live visualization interacting with the live simulation into that feedback form. Also, we'll collect and collate those and help that will help us to see where people are really hitting pain points in the web-based user interface and that workflow.
Thank everybody for attending today. Hope that you got a lot of value out of the time. And like as mentioned, be sure for any follow-up questions to utilize the support group on the Cisco Learning Network. Have a great day.